Okay, so briefly, if you want to talk about first, because you're one of the few people here that have been in the rock scene from the beginning. So maybe if you want to talk a little bit about what the differences have been since you started many, many years ago. You know, it was very, very underground. Slowly it became unofficial and more. So maybe just the changes of the Leningrad rock scene.
Well, I'm not one of the first ones. Oh, I started, I think, in 1977. I started earlier, but the music that meant something. We played with various groups, but the groups that were good, you know, they started in 1977. So I'm not the first one, but it was 10 years ago. It was underground from one point of view, but it was rather free. It's a strange thing, you know. Some people made some concerts and they went on. Sometimes there were some difficulties with it. Then the situation somehow changed. There were more difficulties with authorities. Then it all turned to rock club. Then there were no difficulties at all. Suddenly, freedom. We were happy and we began playing. Then again difficulties, and now it's a strange situation. From one point of view, we've got our club, we've got all rights to play rock and roll and to sing everything that we want, but it turns out the other way sometimes. But I think the position is rather good, I would say. Some difficulties, some hardships, but I'm rather optimistic. I think it's rather fine.
Okay, also, many of the groups that started when you started 10 years ago, Machina Vremya,
they started much earlier.
Much earlier. Okay, but again from the earlier part of the Russian rock scene, Machina Vremya, now of course Aquarium, they have all taken those steps to becoming official bands, and Zoo hasn't yet. And is that your choice, or why is that?
What do you mean official? Professional? Or
professional.
Aquarium, they, as far as I know, I talked to them, they don't want to be professional in a common sense of this word. They don't want to work for Leningrad.
Right.
They want to be free. They want. They sometimes work for Leningrad, but they are not a part of Leningrad. We work for Leningrad sometimes too, but on this step of time, for my mind, there is no point to become a professional. It's a long story. Too many difficulties. They pay not too much money, I would say. They send to the tours when you don't want to go to the tour, and the tours are not always in big cities, but at some country, at Siberia, and you stay home only for 2 months a year. So I think that it's not time for us to become professional. We don't want it.
Никогда сильно не курил, поэтому не было проблемы бросить. Я не было проблемы из того, что я закуриваю время от времени.
Okay. Ready, Judy? Okay. I want to know a little bit, of course this is a hard thing to explain, but what your songs are about, the text, what the music is. I don't know if it's changed from when you started 10 years ago, but I know in interviewing fans and people in Leningrad, when they mention the bands from the beginning that have changed their lives, they mention Aquarium, they mention Zoo, so something must have been very important in your music.
You talk about the music or the words?
Both. You can talk about both.
Music, you know, time goes on and music changes. So, not to, I cannot say too many words about that. As for words, I think I think about what is here and now. All situations, maybe dirty situations, maybe clean situations, maybe love, maybe some craziness, maybe some hang-ups. Everything that is here and now. About common problems, for me, my problems that are maybe someone else's problems. So that's that.
And what, I mean, if somebody asked, you know, that didn't know your music and said, well, what kind of band is it? You know, Lisa, they kind of call new wave techno pop. Boris, sometimes they call kind of folk music and rock music. It's all different. What if you had to classify, again, it's a hard thing to do, classify your music, but what kind of band would you consider Zoo?
I think we're just a rock and roll band. Just a rock and roll band. Though I have some ballads, acoustic ballads. But as a group, we're just straight rock and roll band.
Has it been this? Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe a kind of, some kind of style. Well, we play the blues, we play rock and roll. Maybe we sound a bit like Rolling Stones, a bit, but not like that.
Was it a major influence?
What?
Was it a major influence?
One of the influences, too many influences.
What are they?
Yeah.
I think that every music that I heard influenced me somehow. Some music that I like, or I don't like, it influences.
Russian music also? So
Yes.
Any particular ones, Russian music?
Russian
that
music.
influenced
Well, I liked Машина времени. In 1977 they were the greatest Russian band. Aquarium, of course. Well, I always liked Санкт-Петербург and Большой железный колокол with Николай Корзинин. Юрий Ильченко. Russian influences, yes.
What do you think, I mean, because you've heard, of course, a lot of the music from the West. What do you think is the difference, of course, beside singing in Russian and singing English, what differences do you find in Western music and Eastern music?
Well, I would say that Eastern music is much less commercial. We do just what we like to do, and no one tells us what to do. When we are in studio, when we're recording in studio. Then a lot of differences were limited in that point that we have not 1,000 synthesizers and Gibsons and Fenders, you know, we play on rather cheap guitars. We don't have that recording facilities that they have in the West, but we just like what we do, and I think that I can honestly say that everything I ever wrote, it was very honest. I didn't ever write a commercial song that it would go to the charts or would be played on television or on radio and so on. Everything I ever wrote is very honest.
Okay, you mentioned a little bit in there about the equipment, that obviously is one of the difficulties of being, I guess, an unofficial band or not a professional band. What other, is that the main difficulty, the equipment, or what other kinds of problems do you have being an unofficial band or a non-professional band?
Problems? Well, we play the concerts not so often as we would like to. We can't get a record on in the shops, but though they promised us that it would be, that they would they would have our record. Well, as for touring, sometimes we would like to tour to Moscow or to some big city. It's very rare, maybe 2 or 5 times a year. Well, I don't know what else can I say. There are maybe some difficulties, but I don't know.
What do you think when you started and when the first rock and roll band started in the Soviet Union? Of course, they had some difficulties just because of rock and roll itself, and people didn't like it. So there really was a struggle there, which I think maybe was in the songs or at least in the scene and everything. What do you think about now? The rock and roll scene in the Soviet Union seems to be getting much easier, and rock is almost becoming a very official form of art. And some people are saying that maybe now something is lost, and that the new bands that are coming up maybe aren't as good as the old bands because they really don't have that struggle. It's kind of in America. A lot of people said that about the '60s bands. They really were singing about something, and now bands in America aren't. I mean, what do you think about the new Soviet bands, young bands?
I haven't heard too many new bands, but the ones I heard. Well, I'm an old man, you know. I didn't like them too much. Maybe it's new music. They play for the boys and girls who are 17, 16. You know, maybe they like it. They like it fine. But I prefer the old music. I like the 60s very much. Now big beat, rock and roll, and that kind of stuff. They like electropop, electronic music, and other kinds of music. I don't blame that for them. Each generation must have their music, their own music. It's okay, but I don't like too many new bands.
And
they have the other attitude to music.
what about the transition of going to a professional status? Many bands that have done it in the Soviet Union, the perfect example everybody always brings up, of course, is Mishima Vremya. 10 years ago, they're the most popular band, then they go to official status, or professional status, and that there's something lost there. This, of course, happens in the States too. An independent band goes to major label, and it's the most difficult thing to ever figure out what it is that made them lose something. But, I mean, do you have any ideas on that? What the difference is?
Well, you know, I think you cannot physically write only good songs for 10 years. It's only genius can write only good songs for 10 years. When you become professional, your subconsciously, yes,
subconsciously,
something like that. You begin to write the material which you would be able to play in concerts or to record officially. It's a subconscious move, and so, but it leads to going down. Automatically it leads to going down. That was what happened to Машина Времени after they started being the professionals.
Are you not afraid that something like this might happen to you?
Well, the time will show, but I'm not going to be a professional right now.
And is that the reason why you choose not to be?
There are too many reasons. At this right now, too many reasons.
How do you make a living here? Because since you're not a professional, you can't make money off your music.
Я сторож. I'm working. I'm working for, I think, 6 years. They pay me for my work.
What kind of work?
Сторож, как
Watchman.
night watchman, yeah.
Okay.
So I've got a lot of free time.
For your music.
Asking about his audience.
Oh, yeah. What? I mean, a couple of things about your audience. But first of all, who are your fans? I mean, typically, because it differs. You know, Kino for the most part has a very young crowd. Aquarium gets a wide range. And
I really don't know. When I'm playing on stage, I see only the first 2 rows. I think they're about from 22 to 30. I think maybe 35. More grown-ups.
Anything else you're thinking?
But I know a boy who is 5. He likes us. I know one woman who is 82. She listens to us and she says she likes us.
So what have you been planning for the next step for Zoo? Are you recording another album soon? Are you going to do some more concerts?
Another album, I mean tape album.
Okay.
Tape album, tape where we will be recording, I think, very soon. Then firma Melodia, they promised us one album, limited edition album, and there would be a compilation album of Leningrad groups. They promised that 1 or 2 of our songs would be there.
And what do you think about Russian music being released in the West? Of course, you know about Red Wave, and hopefully some more stuff like that will happen. And I know that Moscow, you know, Melodia, Mezhna Kniga would like to release stuff in the West. What do you think about Russian music in the West? Do you think it can really have an impact and people can understand what it is?
It's good. It's good that it is released in the West. That people of the West would be have a chance to be acquainted with our music. It's of course it's good, but I wonder. They've got a whole lot of their own music. Why they should be interested in some guys from Leningrad, 10,000 miles away, who are playing their rock and roll? Then there's a barrier about language, of course. So the words mean much more in our songs, I mean in Russian groups, than in Western groups. As for me, except for some people like Bob Dylan, maybe Leonard Cohen, and so on. We just don't sing songs about, oh, I love you baby, you're so sweet, you're so fine, come on, let's dance. We don't sing that stuff. So the words mean something. They don't know Russian, as far as I know, as a rule. So maybe it's not as interesting to them as it is for us to listen to our music. But who knows, maybe some of them would like it.
So what are your, I guess, dreams for the future? Maybe just in terms of yourself, in terms of Soviet music, in terms of Zoo, I don't know, but what are your dreams for the future?
To become a millionaire. Well, to be able to play, to record our music, to go to some cities where we have never been, to be popular, maybe to screen some films, some clips. Well, but the first thing is to play good music, to do it well. As for, I think it is for all bands to do what they want to do, to have a chance to do what they want to do, and to be understood.
It's great. Alex, you think of anything else?
Миша, может быть такой вопрос. I was asking
Yeah.
Russian. Вот как ты считаешь, те изменения, которые сейчас происходят с некой такой либерализацией и легализацией, с появлением рок-н-ролла, положительное ли это явление в целом для функционирования и существования рок-музыки в стране или нет? Ну, я отвечаю по-английски. Shall I translate it? John, shall I translate the question?
If you'd like to, but then sit over here. So we can hear.
So I asked him what he thinks about the changes which are happening now or have been happening recently with the official status of the rock music here in this country. Are they positive or negative? How they influence the position of rock music in the country? What does he think about the developments in this?
In Russian it is called «Палка о двух концах».
It's a two-way stick, two-end stick. It's Russian. Well, it has both strong and weak points.
Of course.
Every cloud has a silver lining.
So, well, I would like to say that the changes are great and that's good, but I'm afraid that I'm not over-optimistic about it. Well, I think time will show. I'm not much of a weatherman. I still don't know where the wind blows. I still don't know. Time will show.
So anything else you want to say about anything, or?
Well, I really don't know what to say.
Okay, well what about, actually I have another question.
I'm not much of a talker.
People, musicians in the West that are as popular as you have been over the years, lead a much different life. You know, of course they make a lot of money for their music, but beside that they start secluding themselves because, you know, the public always wants to be around them, that their security, and you don't know where they live and you can't ring them. That doesn't work in the Soviet Union. I mean, most of the musicians here walk to their concerts carrying their own guitars. You come out in front of the audience before and test the equipment, which they don't do in the West. And most people know how to find you, either by telephone if you have one or find your house. Do you like that you're kept on that level with the people here, or do you wish that maybe sometimes you could have a little more privacy?
Well, I like privacy. I like privacy very much. Sometimes I'm not against talking to some fan, maybe on the street or in some cafe or well in our club, but I'm not too much pleased when they come knocking at my door and hello Mike, or I don't like that too much. I like privacy. My home is my fortress. But in general I like my fans and I'm thankful to them that they somehow like our music, and I'm eager to talk to them, but not at home.
Another question. You live in Leningrad, and sometimes in your songs there is a sort of feeling of contradiction between Leningrad and Moscow.
Yes. Yes,
can
of
you
course.
just comment on that?
As far as I know, if Moscow is a bit like New York, Leningrad is more like Washington.
Or San Francisco.
Or San Francisco, maybe. I don't know. Never been in San Francisco. Moscow is too large, too fast city, too nervous city. They're always running everywhere. They cannot walk. They're all running. They street hassles always, and they've got the other kind of people there. Leningrad is more quiet city. It's very. They call Moscow industrial center and Leningrad cultural center. You know, people have more culture in Leningrad. We are more quiet. When we don't hurry everywhere. we've got a small city. So that's that.
You said that Leningrad is a more cultural center, and when asked about your influences in Russian music, you mentioned some of the Soviet rock musicians. Do you feel any other touches or connections with Russian art, with the Russian culture in general, besides rock and roll?
Well, I love some poets, some Russian poets, some painters. I always liked the bad films.
Could you say that any of these poets or painters or artists somehow were a greater or lesser influence to you as a creative person?
Well, you know, everything is influence. You look out of your window and maybe there's a song in the window. Well, everything you ever heard, ever saw. So, but I always liked Joseph Brodsky, Russian poet who lives in
New York.
In New York, yeah. He's a greatest poet. Well, too many influences. From Chuck Berry to Joseph Brodsky.
Do you know Joseph Brodsky?
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't know his poems.
He's a great poet.
Okay. Well, I think it's good. That's some good stuff. Okay. Thank you.